Hi, welcome to NTP's Masterclass. Today we're going to be having a look at a vehicle schedule. It's a double manned vehicle schedule. Now, one of the things with an exam is sometimes they'll tell you whether you're looking at single manned or double manned. Other times you're left to try and work it out for yourself. And this is exactly that. It's an ex-OCR case study, and this one gives you indications what you should be doing, but doesn't specifically tell you. So we're going to have a look at that one today. Right, a couple of quick tips about the exam. When you get into the exam, sit down, you're going to have your question paper and you're going to have your case study. Now, it's probably a good idea to have a little look through at the case studies at the end of our course and have a practice and see which method suits you best. Two ways. One, take your case study, read through the case study, then have a look at your questions and then go back looking through the case study for the information for the question. Or the other way is don't even touch your case study, open your questions up and have a look at the questions. Then go to the first question, then open your case study and look through the case study specifically for items that relate to that question. No right or wrong way of doing it, all depends on you as an individual. Some people get lost in the story when they read through it the first time. So much information to try and take in. So have a practice, see which way suits you. Okay, let's have a little look at the case study then. I'm going to read it out, then we'll pause, allow you to have a look through and see if you can find any relevant information, and then we'll continue. Okay, so the case study question. OCF's delivery and collection routes 11 and 6 operate every weekday as described in the case study. Complete the following driver schedule for one round-trip journey on Route 11 using the minimum number of drivers. Your schedule must start when the drivers begin work in Oxford and end when the vehicle arrives back at Oxford. Notes: you must show the names of all drivers on board the vehicle on each line. You are not required to identify the person driving the vehicle. You must show the destination for all driving periods. So, you open the question, you have a look at that question. What in there relates to the vehicle schedule that we're actually going to work out? Pause, have a look, highlight what you think is relevant, and then come back. Okay, welcome back. Right, so what did we find? Complete the following driver schedule for one round-trip journey to Route 11 using the minimum number of drivers. Okay, so we've got one round-trip journey. So that means we've got to bear in mind that wherever we go to, we've got to come back. Route 11, the top of the question says Route 11 and Route 6. We're concentrating on Route 11. And using the minimum number of drivers. Now, this is a clear indication that we're not going to be able to do the whole journey on one driver. So we could well be looking at double manned. Notes: you must show the names of all drivers on board the vehicle on each line. And you're not required to identify the person driving the vehicle. So there's a clue that we're going to have more than one driver in the vehicle at a time. So we're looking at double manned. Two people on board at the same time, but it's telling us that we've not got to work out who's driving. So all we've got to do is state the two drivers that will be in that vehicle. So that saves a little bit of working out. You must show the destination for all driving periods. So that's advice when we come to writing down our schedule. Make sure that where we are driving to somewhere, we put where we're driving to. If we don't, we're not going to get the mark. Okay, right, let's have a look at the start of the case study then. So, background. Oxford Children Frozen plc, OCF, manufactures and sells substantial quantities of quick frozen ready meals using recipes from all over the world. Its customers include major supermarket chains and wholesale warehouse operators in the UK. The meals are manufactured at a number of the company's sites, each specialising in particular product areas. The meals are transported between OCF's sites for onward delivery to customers. OCF's refrigerated vehicle fleet includes 3,500 kilogram vans, 7,500 kilogram and 18,000 kilogram rigid lorries and 44,000 kilogram articulated combinations. The vehicles operate over a number of set routes designed to place products at OCF sites to enable deliveries to customers. OCF holds restricted operator licences covering all sites except Boreham Wood. Its sites are described in the following table. Okay, so have a look through that, highlight anything that is going to be directly of use to working out a vehicle schedule. Don't worry about any other questions, just the vehicle schedule. Pause, highlight, and then come back in a minute. Right, what did we find? Well, hopefully, like me, after trawling through that bit, you found absolutely nothing that's going to affect our vehicle schedule. So we can skip that one and move on to the next bit. So the next bit gives us a table, and that tells us where the sites are for the company, which traffic area they are in, the number of authorised vehicles, the number of authorised trailers, and the current vehicle margin. So in this case, traffic area West England, 6 authorised vehicles, and they've got no margin, so they're obviously running 6 vehicles. Again, is any of this of relevance to our driver schedule? Just pause, highlight, and then we'll take a look. Right, so hopefully you've had a little bit more information on this one. Let's have a little look. At the top, Stockport, Peterborough and Boreham Wood to Margate. That's given us a little bit of an overview of what we think that the journey is going to be. It has 2 seats in the cab but no sleeping facilities. Again, an indication that we're looking at more than one driver being present in the vehicle, but no sleeping facilities means we're not going to be scheduling in a daily rest period for one person. There's no sleeping facilities, so you wouldn't be able to take it in the vehicle. The next section we've got down here gives us the bones of what we're going to be working with. Oxford tells us that when we get in the evening, the vehicle is already loaded. We've not got to worry about that. It tells us that we're going to start at 8 o'clock. There's an important time. We know that our schedule is going to be starting at 8 o'clock. It tells us that we've got a 15-minute vehicle check to be done. And it also gives us an indication that there might be a possibility that there's more than one driver or drivers, something that we've got to bear in mind. Stockport, vehicle check required 15 minutes and drivers unload and load for 1 hour. Again at Peterborough, unload and load for 1 hour, and it's given us a time again of 6 o'clock, so we've got to hit that time. Boreham Wood. Now, notice something different about Boreham Wood, and when you look down Margate and Oxford, that's actually given us kilometres. The other 2 haven't. So we're going to have to try and work out what those kilometres are. That means that either Oxford to Stockport or Stockport to Peterborough may well be mentioned elsewhere in the case study. So we need to keep a lookout for that. If the kilometres is not mentioned, then we're going to have to look for another way of working that distance out. So Boreham Wood, 120 kilometres from Peterborough, unloading and loading for 1 hour. Again, a time we must hit. Must start at 9 o'clock. Margate, 180 kilometres from Boreham Wood, drivers unloading for 30 minutes. And Oxford, 270 kilometres from Margate. And when they get back to Oxford, they've got to complete paperwork and debrief, 15 minutes. So we now have our schedule. We've already got the schedule pre-given to us. We've not got to work it out. We're starting in Oxford, we're delivering to these places, and we're finishing back in Oxford. No other information on there is of relevance. All of this is nothing to do with actually working out a driver schedule. Okay, so let's have a little look at the next slide. Delivery route 6. OCF transports packaging materials which are delivered to the Stockport site every weekday, Monday to Friday inclusive, including any public holidays that fall on weekdays every week. Details of the single manned delivery route 6 are set out below. It uses a refrigerated 18-tonne lorry. Stockport, driver vehicle check required 15 minutes, load for 15 minutes, must start by 2 o'clock. Oxford, 270 kilometres from Stockport, unload for 10 minutes, load for 15 minutes. OCF scheduling rules. Driver and vehicle schedules for set routes must assume an average speed of 60 kilometres per hour. Driver break and rest periods may only be scheduled when they are legally required for the shortest possible time. All drivers assigned to a vehicle are required to assist with vehicle checks. They are also required to assist with all loading and unloading activities away from the Oxford site. All drivers have signed an opt-out from working time limit for night workers. OCF operates a car shuttle service to relocate drivers as required. It also provides sleeping facilities for drivers at Oxford. The following drivers are available to work on Route 11 and or Route 6. At Oxford, Ian, Una, Raj, Dave, Don, Ray. At Stockport, Emma, Kate, Jan, Ken, Will, Powell, Ron, Bill, Charles, Alex, Tony and Paul. Okay, so pause, have a look through, highlight what you think is relevant to our driver schedule. Right, what have we found this time? One that a lot of people miss is at the top here, Oxford, 270 kilometres from Stockport. Now that is under delivery route 6, but is that of relevance to us? It is, isn't it? Because if you remember back on the last slide, the Oxford to Stockport had got no kilometres listed as well. So I said that we might need to find that elsewhere in the study. And here it is. So we now know that missing mileage for the first bit. OCF scheduling rules. And obviously these apply to both Route 11 and Route 6. So the average speed of 60 kilometres per hour is vital for us. All of the other bits are relevant. Yeah, they will all affect the route as we work it out. Now note at the bottom we've got drivers that are available for Route 11 and or Route 6, and we've got 6 available at Oxford and we've got 12 available at Stockport. Now if you have a look at the names, none of them are repeated. So that gives us a bit of a clue that maybe this first bit, Oxford to Stockport on Route 11, we could be using driver or drivers from that one and then changing of drivers on the second one. And there is another clue that gives us an idea on that as well. Okay, so those are the relevant bits for our schedule. Let's have a look at the next bit. Costing information for OCF's vehicle combinations. This gives us the cost item and the cost rule or amount or rate for it. Vehicle depreciation, semi-trailer depreciation, driver's wages, other standing costs, fuel price, fuel consumption, tyres, maintenance. Again, have a pause, have a look, see if any of that is of relevance to our driver schedule, highlight it and come back in a second. That's right, absolutely nothing of relevance. That's all to do with costing. We're not looking at costing, we're looking at vehicle schedule. Next bit of information then. Current issues, drivers compliant, Oxford Operating Centre. The drivers based at OCF's Oxford Operating Centre have complained that the facilities and resources provided to them for completing daily vehicle checks are inadequate. Cash budget. OCF's Finance Director has submitted a draft budget for the calendar year 2020, including projected trading and profit and loss accounts, a balance sheet and a cash flow forecast. The profit and loss accounts predicts that 2020 will be a profitable year, and the balance sheet predicts that the company will be comfortably solvent by the 31st of December 2020. The directors are satisfied that all sales and costs have been budgeted at reasonable levels, and they will not permit these forecasts to be changed. The draft cash flow forecast shows figures for each month in 2020. It predicts that the company's overdraft will exceed that agreed with the bank between February and May 2020 inclusive. The shortfall is projected to peak at £15,000. So will any of that affect our driver schedule? Pause it, have a look, highlight it, and then we'll have a look. Anything on there? Absolutely nothing. Nothing that's going to affect our driver schedule. What about the next one? Cash receipt and payment line items shown in the cash flow forecast set out below. So that gives us our cash flow item and it tells us when we're likely to get paid. Have a look through that, see if any of that's relevant to our driver schedule. Yeah. Pause and see in a second. Right, so absolutely nothing in that one? Correct, absolutely nothing in that one that's going to affect our vehicle schedule. So what we've done is we've taken all the information and we have now put it together onto the next slide. So we have got that we're dealing with Route 11 from Oxford, Monday to Friday inclusive. The refrigerated articulated combination assigned to this route has 2 seats in the cab but no sleeping facilities. So we're not going to be taking a single manned daily rest break anywhere in the vehicle. Information on the left hand side, make sure that you've got that highlighted. Just pop through your paper because this screen when we're going through the schedule is going to disappear. So just make sure you've got these bits highlighted. Oxford. You can pop by the side of that now that we know that it's 270 kilometres from Stockport because we nicked that, didn't we, off Route 6. The vehicle's preloaded by the warehouse staff. We know that we're not going to worry about that. We're going to rock in to start our day and it's going to be preloaded, it's ready to go. Driver starts shift at 8 o'clock in the evening. That is our first time that is given. So we now know where we can start our schedule because the question says that it's starting in Oxford. And it's told us that we need to have a 15-minute vehicle check. So we've now got our first bit of the schedule ready to go. Stockport. We've still not established how far Stockport is from Peterborough, so we're going to have to work that out as we go through. Driver's vehicle check required 15 minutes and driver unload and load for 1 hour. Now there is an absolutely stalwart example of what we're going to need to be working out because you've got a vehicle check at Oxford and you've got a vehicle check at Stockport. So that's going to signify a change of drivers, isn't it? Now down here, we've got our change of drivers because at Oxford, we've got 6 drivers. At Stockport, we've got 12 drivers. And if you notice, none of the names are the same. So we can look at designing our vehicle schedule for a driver or drivers, depending on the distance, we'll look at that in a second, to do the Oxford to Stockport and change drivers to continue. Peterborough, unload and load for 1 hour, must start at 6 o'clock in the morning. So another time we've got to hit. Borehamwood, 120 kilometres from Peterborough, driver unload and load for 1 hour, must start at 9 o'clock. And bear in mind all these unloads and loads flicks back onto this side where it says that they're required to assist with all loading and unloading activities, which means that it's going to be other work. We're not going to be taking driving breaks there, it's going to be other work. Margate, 180 kilometres from Borehamwood and unloading for 30 minutes. Oxford, 270 kilometres from Margate. Driver to complete paperwork and debrief, 15 minutes. And vehicle unloaded by warehouse staff. Now, although we've highlighted those, bear in mind what the question said, and the question said to arrive in Oxford. So in actual practice, our schedule, we're going to be finishing the moment that the vehicle pulls back into the Oxford depot. So actually, the completing paperwork and debrief, we're not going to need. And the vehicle unloaded by warehouse staff, that's the same as at Oxford there, and fits in with where it says on here about not requiring unloading activities away from the Oxford site. Okay, on the other side, absolutely crucial, we're going to be using 60 kilometres per hour as our average speed. Driver break rest periods only scheduled when they're legally required for the shortest possible time. All drivers assigned to a vehicle are required to assist with vehicle checks. Drivers have signed an opt-out from working time limit for night workers because our schedule's going to start at 8 o'clock in the evening and it's going to cross over the midnight to 4 o'clock period, which is your nighttime working. they have opted out of the 10-hour limit. So we've not got to bear that in mind when we're doing the schedule. OCF operates a car shuttle service to relocate drivers as required. It also provides sleeping facilities for drivers at Oxford. So we know that the driver or drivers are going to have been able to have taken a daily rest prior to them starting at 2000, 8 o'clock at night, and can take a daily rest when they get back to Oxford if they need to. Right, so make sure you've got those highlighted, because like I say, this is going to disappear. When we start going through the next slide, then it's not going to be on screen for you to see. Okay. There we go. Right, this is in the question paper. Our grid tells us we need the start time, so we've got to populate the start time. We've got to populate the finish time of any specific activity. Remember what it said in the question about activities that involves driving. We must state where we're driving to, otherwise we're not going to get a mark. And on the right hand side, we've got to put the name or names of any drivers on board. And again in the question it says we've not got to identify who's driving, we've just got to put who's on board. Where do we start? Always recommend we start by working out what route we're actually going to be talking about. Well, we know the route on this one because it's a return journey. It's starting at Oxford. So the route's going to have to come all the way back to Oxford. This is really nicely already given us the route that we're taking. We know that it's Oxford, Stockport, Peterborough, Bournemouth, Margate, and back to Oxford. So that in itself is quite simplistic. Now, we know, because I've already said that this is a double manned schedule. As we've gone through, we've picked out a few indications that it's double manned. This is quite a difficult case study because, as with any double manned, if it doesn't say that it's double manned, you've got to work out how much can be operated. And this one's got a little bit of a curveball. And the best advice I can give you is, right from the start, work out with what you're given. Yeah, so as we can work out the whole time that it's going to take us from Oxford to get back to Oxford. And then we can sort of look and see whether we're nailing something here, because with our list of drivers, we've got one list of drivers at Oxford and we've got one list of drivers at Stockport. So we really need to have a look and see whether we're sort of looking at the right way of doing this. So if we look at the information that we're given, run it back so as I can show you. So look at the information that we're given. We know that we're starting at 8 o'clock. We've been given mileage. We've been given a 15-minute check, 15-minute check, an hour unloading and loading, an hour unloading and loading, but we've not been given the mileage here. 6 o'clock, 120 kilometres, another hour loading and unloading, 9 o'clock. Yeah, we've been given a time of 9 o'clock. So if we look at 8 o'clock for starting our schedule, and we look at 9 o'clock to start our loading and unloading, let's add that hour on. Yeah, so it's 10 o'clock. How many hours is it between 8 o'clock in the evening and 10 o'clock in the morning? We've got 14 hours, haven't we? Yeah, so we know that the spread of that journey is 14 hours. We can then add on, and this is fairly simple because 60 kilometres an hour means a minute per kilometre an hour. So 180 kilometres is 180 minutes. So if we convert this 14 hours into minutes, so 14 times 60, we get 840 minutes. Yeah, so just jot that down. Add on 180, add on 30, add on 270. We've now got our time it's going to take us to get from Oxford all the way back to Oxford. Now, if you add all those together, then you should get 1,320 minutes. Now, 1,320 minutes divided by 60 gives us 22 hours. What is the most that a double manned team can work before taking a daily rest? 21 hours. So the whole of this schedule is more than we can do as a double manned journey. Yeah, so that has shown us that we've got to separate that journey in two. They've given us the information. Oxford to Stockport, change your drivers, Stockport round to Oxford. Yeah, so we've now confirmed that there is massive relevance in the two sets of drivers. Which drivers are we going to use? Well, there's absolutely nothing in the case study that gives us any indication as to which drivers that we have to use. So, literally, Oxford, any. Stockport, any. But now we need to look and see how many drivers we need for each leg. Right, so flick back to the other screen again. We've got our 8 o'clock start time. We know that the first thing that we do when we walk in is we've got to do a walk round check, and it did actually tell us, didn't it, that we have to do a 15-minute walk round check. So we can do 8 o'clock walk round check. And what about names? Let's just pick the first name off the list at Oxford. Yeah, let's populate that with Ian. We can always add another name if we need 2 drivers on this leg. 15-minute walk round check, finish time's going to be 20:15. Yeah, so we know that our next line, which is going to be when we start driving to Stockport, we're going to start this at 20:15. Our activity will be drive to Stockport, and remember we have to put to Stockport. And how far is Oxford to Stockport? Well, we nicked that, didn't we, off Route 6, 270 kilometres. 270 divided by 60 kilometres average gives us 4.5 hours. So we know that if we're starting to drive at 20:15, then we're going to be 1:45 in the morning, 4.5 hours. Yeah. And we're going to populate that again with the name of Ian. Now we've hit Stockport and we've got a list of a change of drivers. So is there any reason whatsoever why we need a second driver on that journey? No, I can't see one. We've only driven 4.5 hours. We've only worked 4 hours 45 minutes. So that can be a single manned journey, can't it? So when we get to Stockport, we're going to hand the vehicle over to driver or drivers at Stockport. That's obviously going to start at 00:45. And what's the first activity that the new drivers are going to have to undertake? They're going to have to do that walk round check, aren't they? And they're going to do the 15-minute walk round check, vehicle checks, that was listed under Stockport in our list. Who's going to do it? Let's just pick 2 drivers. We know we're talking about double man, so we're going to assume that we're going to start double man from here. Let's just pick 2 drivers, the first 2 off the list, Emma and Kate, and that 15 minutes is going to be 1 o'clock. So 1:45 to 1 o'clock, walk round check, and 2 drivers, any 2 drivers that are listed under Stockport. Once they've done the walk round check, they can then do the loading and unloading. So 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, unload and load. That will be Emma and Kate again, won't it? Yeah, same drivers. We're going to use the same drivers all the way through the balance of the schedule. So 2 o'clock, ready to rock and roll. They're going to drive to Peterborough. Now here's a bit of a problem, isn't it? Because we don't know how far Peterborough is. There's no mileage given anywhere in the case study. So is it an oversight? How are we going to work it out? Well, the only way we can work it out is that under Peterborough, if you flick back and have a look, it told us that the driver is unloading and unloading for 1 hour, and this must start at 6 o'clock. So the only thing that we can assume is that once leaving at 2 o'clock and driving to Peterborough, they're going to arrive at 6 o'clock. So we've got a 4-hour drive, yeah, to Peterborough to arrive there for 6 o'clock. Again, of course, it's going to be Emma and Kate, isn't it? So that's that part of the schedule done. Yeah, we've overcome the problem that there was no kilometres there. So what do they do at Peterborough? Well, they've got an hour unloading and loading. So 6 till 7, we're going to unload and load. Got to unload, haven't we, before we can load. And that again is going to be Emma and Kate, isn't it? Now, don't forget that under a double man schedule, you don't have to take any account for driving breaks, because the second driver will take their 45-minute driving break in the passenger seat of the moving vehicle. And the question's not asked us to put who's driving, just who's on board. So we don't have to think quite so in depth as what we did. Right, so we have unloaded and we have loaded. It's now 7 o'clock. What are we going to do? We are going to have to drive to Borehamwood, aren't we? So we're going to start at 7 o'clock. How far is Borehamwood? Now, Borehamwood has already been given as 120 kilometres away from Peterborough. So we're going to drive for 2 hours. 120 divided by 60 is 2 hours. And again, Emma and Kate. Yeah. Right, once we get to Borehamwood, then we have got an hour's worth of unloading and loading. So starting at 9 o'clock, we're going to unload and load, finish it at 10 o'clock, and again, it's still going to be Emma and Kate, isn't it? Yeah. Once we've unloaded and loaded at Borehamwood, we've then got to drive to Margate, and we've already been given Borehamwood to Margate is 180 kilometres. So we'll start at 10 o'clock. 180 divided by 60 is 3 hours. So 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock drive to Margate. And again, remember, we've driven to Stockport, we've driven to Peterborough, we've driven to Margate, to Borehamwood, we've put that we've driven to Margate. Yeah, so as we get those marks. We arrive at Margate at 1 o'clock, and what else does it tell us in the schedule to do? It tells us that at Margate we've got half an hour to unload. So 1 o'clock, unload, 1:30, and again it's going to be Emma and Kate. So now we've completed all of our deliveries. We've now got an empty vehicle. But the question in the schedule told us to go back to, it's a return journey, so we've got to go back to Oxford. So how far is Oxford from Margate? 270 kilometres. 270 divided by 60 gives us 4.5 hours. So we're going to start at 1:30, yeah, and drive to Oxford, 4.5 hours. We're going to arrive back at Oxford at 1800, 6 o'clock in the evening. Now don't forget what the question said. The question said arrive at Oxford. That's where we finish our schedule, so we don't have to worry about the 15 minutes. If you put the 15 minutes below, you're just not going to get a mark for it. So there we go. There's our schedule. Not actually as complicated as it seems. Good example of one where information appears to be missing, but there's always a way around it. Remember, if a kilometres is not given, there's often an indication of time. You can use the time to work the kilometres out. Yeah. Now, as a quick check, what time did we change drivers? We changed drivers at 1:45. When did we finish our schedule? We finished the schedule at 6 o'clock. Between 1:45 and 6 o'clock, can we do that in our double manned rules? We've not driven more than 20 hours. We've not worked more than 21 hours. So that's absolutely fine. So there we are, a double manned schedule with a couple of curveballs thrown in. I hope that's been of some use. I hope that's a little bit clearer. Certainly it did cause a lot of issues when the case study was done in the exam, but hopefully that shows you that even if information appears not to be there, there are ways of working it around. Well, thanks very much for that. We have got other masterclasses if you'd like to have a look through. All of them differ in some way and will give you useful information that will help just nail those little bits and pieces for your exam. If there's anything that we can do to help you, by all means let us know. have a look at the bottom of the course, the case studies there, send them in for marking. We can give you constructive feedback and help you to not only understand the information you need to learn, but also a lot of it is down to technique, and that's what we're here for. Thanks very much from us all. See you soon in another video.